Right, it is 8 o'clock. Hello again. Welcome to our full council meeting. Thanks for coming back. Hope everyone's refreshed and was able to access the papers that they hadn't been able to do previously. So, in the first instance, we have public question time. Liz, do we have anyone for public question time?
No, we don't have any public members.
Okie dokie. Okay, so we'll move on to the next item, which is to accept apologies for absence. Again, Councillor Roberts is the only one I'm aware of. Been any subsequent apologies, Liz?
Yeah, that's the only one. Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you. And item 192, to receive members' interests in items on the agenda and any written requests for DPI. Have we got any of those?
No.
Okay. No one got any interest in the agenda? No. Can't see
No.
any hands. Yeah. That's fine. Councillor Firth, Councillor Greaves and Councillor Hall, I can't see you at the moment. So I'm assuming you can hear me. Great. Okay, thanks, Councillor Firth. So I'm conscious I won't be able to see if you wave a hand, Councillor Greaves or Councillor Hall. Okay, I can see Councillor Hall. Brilliant. Thanks. Thanks, Councillor Hall. And then there's just Councillor Greaves. Okay, so moving on to item 193, to receive any officers' interest in items on the agenda.
No.
Nope.
No.
Thank you, Liz. And any items should be discussed in private. I assume the one that refers to standing orders regarding pay, which is item N, which falls under item 200 should be in private. Is everyone happy for that to be held in private? I'm assuming for that item, Liz, that you'll be telling us some figures or showing us some figures, because I'm not aware of having had the document.
You should have had them in your pack. I just didn't put them on the website. But the pack that came round to your email should have had it in.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
My mistake. Okay.
But I can put it on the screen.
Okay.
Possibly.
Yeah, we should. Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll see. We'll see when we get there. So apologies, I hadn't picked up that it was in the bigger pack. Okay. So next item 195, to confirm the minutes of previous council meetings. So we've got the full council meeting held on the 1st of February. So I'd like to propose we accept those minutes, please, unless anyone's got any concerns about them or about their accuracy. Okay, all those in favour, please. Brilliant. Okay, thank you. Those are moved. Okay, item sorry, welcome Councillor Sheard and Councillor Greaves. I can see both now. Brilliant, thank you. Right, so moving on to approving committee minutes under delegated powers. There's a whole series of these, so I will ask the relevant chairs or the people who chaired those meetings to speak to them. So in the first instance, we've got the Service Provision Committee meeting on 25th of January, which Councillor Pogson was chair at that meeting. So if I could ask you to propose them.
Okay, I would like to propose that the Service Provision Committee meeting minutes of the meeting on the 25th of January 2021, number 2021-32 through to 2021-52 included, are approved.
Okay, thank you. Someone second that? Yeah, thank you, Councillor Rees. Okay, all those in favour? Yeah, okay, thank you. So moving on to Councillor Blacker for the Planning Committee meeting.
I'd like to propose that the minutes the Planning Committee held on the 8th of February, number 2021-135 to 151 inclusive, are approved.
Okay, thank you. Someone second that, please. Councillor Colling, thank you. All those in favour? Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to the Staffing Committee meetings. This is Councillor Trevor Bellamy, please.
Yes, thank you. Can I ask the I think we're on now. Can I ask the council please to accept the minutes of the Staffing Committee meeting held on the 8th of February? Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Brooke, were you seconding them? Yeah, brilliant. Okay, all those in favour, please. Yeah. Okay, thank you. And then on to Councillor Carey for publications and communications, please. Okay, Councillor Carey, you're on.
I'm just waiting to be unmuted. Thank you very much, Chair. Can I ask that the Publication and Communications Committee on the 15th of February minutes are approved and then numbered number 32 to 46 for your information attached with the minutes. Thanks very much.
Okay, I'll second those. All those in favour, please. Okay, thank you. Right, the next one, back to Councillor Pogson for an extraordinary meeting of the Service Provision Committee that I see he chaired as well.
Hi, can I ask that the full council approve the minutes of the extraordinary meeting of Service Provision Committee numbered, on the 16th of February 2021, numbered 2021-53 through to 2021-59.
Okay, sorry, I can see a hand up from Councillor Brooke. Are you seconding them? Brilliant. Thanks. I like codes. That's good. All those in favour, thanks. Yep. Great. Okay. Oh, you're on again, Councillor Pogson.
Yes, I'd like to ask the full council to approve the minutes of the Finance and Management Committee meeting on the 1st of March 2021, numbered 2021-73 through to 2021-91.
Okay, Councillor Collins seconding that. So all those in favour, please. Great. Okay, thank you. Back to Councillor Blacker.
Thank you. I asked the Planning Committee to approve the minutes of the Planning Committee meeting held on the 8th of March 2021, numbered 152 to 168.
Okay, and someone second those, please. Yeah, thanks, Councillor Dixon. All those in favour? Yeah. Okay, and last but not least, Councillor Colling.
I move approval of the cast draft minutes of the meeting on the 8th of March from 2021-67 to 79.
Super. Can we have someone second that, please? Okay, thanks, Councillor Rees. All those in favour, please? Great. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for doing that so efficiently. Okay, so moving on to the next section of the agenda, which is referral from standing committees. Now we've got a number of referrals from the Finance and Management Committee, which we were just talking about from the 1st of March. So the first one is to approve the payment schedule, and it should read for March 2021. That's just a typo. It shouldn't say April. It should say March. So that's paper K in your packs. So
and it's the ones marked in yellow, Councillor Oldley, that haven't been looked at before. It's actually the ones marked in yellow.
Okay. Right. Has everyone had a chance to look at those? Okay. Can I propose we approve them, please? Anyone second that? Councillor Pogson, thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. It's a majority, thank you. Okay, so moving on to item 198, which is to approve the revised list of regular payments. Again, this is one that came from Finance and Management. So hopefully you've all had a chance to look at that. There's some comments at the bottom of the table that explains what the approval means in terms of the fact that things still have to be signed by two councillors, so it all still adheres to the financial regulations, but it just allows the process by the RFO to be slightly less onerous. Okay, can I propose that we approve those, please? Anyone second that? Yeah, Councillor Davies, thank you. All those in favour? Great, thank you very much. Okay, so next item is number 199, which is to approve the direct debit council year 2021 to 22. So this is paper M in your packs. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands up. So can I Brilliant, thank you. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Okay, and then on to item 200, which is, so this one is in private, which is to approve the direct debits for staff payments. So I'll take that as a proposal, Councillor Brooke, that we propose them. Someone second that, please. Yeah, Councillor Dixon, thank you. All those in favour, please. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so we're back in public session now, private session now. Now to item 201, which is to approve the fixed asset list with disposals. This is quite a long list. There's one question which I just had, which maybe because it's perhaps not formally we now have 6 rather than 5, so I don't know if that needs to be updated.
Well, we haven't formally got the last one.
Okay.
We haven't signed the contract.
Okay, that's fine. Would that be the same about Honley Library as well, where until we've signed the contract, it wouldn't move onto the list? Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Anyone else have any queries or questions? No, not seeing any. Okay, looks like Councillor Brooke is proposing that we approve the fixed asset list. I'm happy to second that. Right, all those in favour, please. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so that was all the referrals from Finance and Management. So moving on to referrals from the Community Asset Support Committee. The first one is 202, and obviously both these grant payments have been reviewed at CASC, but because of the sum of money, they're being referred up to full council for final decision. So the first one is 202, which is to approve a grant payment of £10,000 to the Holme Civic Hall Community Trust to enable them to purchase new fire doors for the large hall. And they explained at CASC that the current fire doors often set the alarm off, from what I understand, because they're not very secure, which obviously isn't good for either the building or for not wasting heat and security, indeed. So they have the grant application for that is in your packs, as well as a sort of outline business plan from the chair of the community trust, which gives an overview of what they've been working on and what their views are of developing in the future. So hopefully you've all had a chance to reflect on those. So Councillor Brooke is proposing that I will interpret your thumbs up, Councillor Brooke, as a proposal that we adopt that, approve that grant payment of £10,000. So will someone second that, please? Councillor Dixon Jr. and Councillor Dalton, did you have your hand up to ask a query before the vote? Okay, could we just hear from Councillor Dalton, please?
Thank you, Chair. Can I just confirm that what we're being asked to do here is approve a grant payment for £10,000 for a set of fire doors? £10,000. I mean, have these been procured? I mean, £10,000 for a set of fire doors sounds a very large amount of money for some doors. I know if I wanted some fire doors at my house, £10,000 would look like an absolutely huge sum of money. Have we seen some form of evidence that some compulsory competitive kind of process has been entered into by the Civic Hall Community Trust to get a decent price on doors? Because £10,000 is a heck of a lot. And I've also, the next item on the agenda is also pertinent to this approval of a grant for £10,000, because if we pay £10,000 for a set of doors for the fire doors, how are we going to be assured that that money is not going to be spent on something else, and in a year's time we're going to be asked for another £10,000 for the same set of doors that weren't purchased with this £10,000.
Okay, thank you for the question, Councillor Dalton. We'll just take a comment from Councillor Paul Dixon, and then we'll let the clerk and chair of CASC perhaps make a comment. Councillor Dixon.
Quite sure what James had just said. It does seem a lot of money. Are they gold plate? Are they something special? Have we seen 3 quotes? Because I think that to talk about £10,000 on one item like that seems above all that's required.
Okay. Can I ask if Councillor Colling wishes to make any points, having?
We haven't seen detailed quotes or anything. It was approved as in principle. It won't. They'll only be given what they need to replace the doors.
Okay. Have Councillor Sheard and then Councillor Carey, please. Councillor Sheard.
Yeah, well, I've just been speaking to my husband, who was a fireman for 30 years, and he said that they're seriously expensive because of the materials. They have to withhold fire resistance for up to an hour. They're not, you know, they are expensive. They are very expensive.
Okay, Councillor Carey, and then Councillor Firth.
Thanks. This was discussed, and also the I can't remember the woman's first name. Mrs. Patrick attended the meeting and spoke to us about it. I was shocked at the price of this particular item, but I was assured that they had looked into it. It is something that's come out of a safety audit on the building. Judith Patrick, thank you, Tom. And so I'm assured. But the other point is, and what I do find a bit bizarre about this, there are doors. They're not. These aren't, the doors are going to belong to a building that we've got the keys for and we're responsible for. So although we're calling it a grant, I always find this very strange because it's basically a physical asset that is the property of the parish council. So my concern is, why are we doing it as a grant? But I will support it because that seems to be how we're doing things. But ultimately there are doors, and if it's a health and safety issue in our building, then I guess we need to spend that money.
Okay, Councillor Firth, I think you had your hand up, and then Councillor Pogson.
I was just going to ask the question. Invariably, when you're wanting to do something with public money, whatever it is, whether it's a public hall or whatever it is, you generally get 3 quotes, and you look at all 3 quotes and decide on the best price and the best quote for the quality. But you always get 3 quotes. You don't take the first quote that comes along, regardless of what they're for, fire doors or whatever. You go for 3 quotes. Simple as that. I've had 3 quotes. Question.
Can I make a comment, Chairman?
Yeah, and then I'll bring Councillor Pogson in. Yep.
Oh, sorry. No, you will have your bit first, and then I'll say.
Okay. All right, Councillor Pogson.
Yeah, from the discussion, can I just clarify? Have we got a firm invoice or a firm bill for fire doors, or are we agreeing in principle to support something, a payment? Because if we're just an agreeing principle, CAS can do that, and then when it's actually got the bill and it needs to be paid, or they're actually going to confirm that that's going to go ahead, it can come to us to approve the money, and we want to see, yes, we would want to see 3 that it had been tendered properly. I think this is
Exactly.
why is this coming to us if we don't know the exact costs of it? We approve expenditure over a certain amount at full council. Yeah. If that's actually, it's been tendered for and gone ahead and scrutinised by CASC, and we've got the bill for it and what have you, then yeah, I would approve it. But until we've got to that point, I think we're putting the cart before the horse. I think CASC can sort of give the nod to the Home Valley Civic Hall to say, yes, in principle, we support you getting new fire doors. Go ahead, get your 3 quotes, come back to us when you've got exactly how much it is. We'll pull it forward to full council, approve the payment, you'll get your fire doors. I think it's just a bit cart before the horse.
Okay. Liz, do you want to comment
I
on
was
that?
going to say it could be treated in the same way as the next item, which was that money was given last year for the refurbishment downstairs, and then Councillor Hogley took part in the tendering exercise, and they've now found that because it's been delayed a year, we're having to give some more money to it. Well, I think if you approved in principle the money for the fire doors, and then Councillor Hogley or another councillor from CAS took part in the exercise of actually studying the quotations, then we could go from there.
Okay, does Councillor Colling want to make a comment on that, given your chair of CAS?
Fine, I think Liz has summarised it well. I mean, we're not at the detailed stage yet. And as Councillor Bogson said, it is a matter, we approved it in principle, not approved specific, precise expenditure.
Okay, so do we have a proposal of how to go forward then? Councillor Dalton, comment, and then Councillor Pogson, I'm assuming, has a proposal of how to go forward.
Yeah, I think Councillor Pogson had a sensible approach to this, that we should be looking at an approval in principle of the replacement of the doors, but we should be looking to seek evidence that an appropriate process has been gone through. It took me about 30 seconds on the phone. You should be able to get the job done for well less than £3,000. And we should get some quotations, some sensible quotations from responsible contractors who can do the work properly for a proper price, because £10,000 is way over what you can get this work done for.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dalton. Right, Councillor Pogson, did you have a proposal then of how we would go forward?
Back to CASC to come back to us with a firm proposal of the actual costs that we want that they need approving at full council. You know, yeah, ask, you know, and if it's over the limit that requires 3 quotes, then I can't remember what that limit is, but I believe this will be over that limit, which requires 3.
Can I just say that we don't ask for 3 quotes when we give a grant. We ask for a quote. It's only when we spend money on ourselves that we have to have 3 quotes. It's a different process for a grant.
I will take on board what you've said, Liz. However, we're asking to approve someone else to spend money on our building. Yeah, whereas if it was us spending the money on our building, we would look for 3 quotes. So I don't think we're asking far too much for the person who's coming forward for a grant in this situation to come forward with 3 quotes for from the fire doors. I'm not disputing how much they cost. I mean, I get surprised every day. I had a new front door put in my house the other day, and I was shocked at how much it cost me for a new front door. I'm not querying how much it's going to be, but I want to, you know, I'd want to see the proper process has been gone through.
Okay, so Councillor Pogson, can you just reiterate what your proposal is so we can get a...
My proposal is, you know, we appreciate that you know, we support the Civic Hall Trust in that they will need replacement doors. I'm not disputing that fact. So I think we support them for that they need new doors, but they can come back to us with that they've seen that they've gone through they've got 3 quotes and we've got an actual amount of money that we need to approve at full council, the actual expenditure. I'm very wary about we approve expenditure of, for want of a better description, I'm sure, and it sounds whimsical, but I don't want, you know, a pin in a number approval thing. I think we should be approving exactly what the money should be. And I'm sorry, that sounds flippant and I don't mean it to be.
Okay, so...
Can I just say as well that that was money to come out of this year's budget. And so if we don't approve it this year, there won't be enough money in the budget for the next grant that we're looking at on the next item. Well, perhaps Rich can help me.
Yeah,
Rich can
I
help
don't know
me
if the RFO can comment on that,
Yeah.
and then we'll bring in Councillor Brooke, and then I think we need to see if we've got a second of Councillor Pogson's motion, please.
Was I speaking first?
Yeah, Rich, if you can speak first, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, that is true that we were trying to use money from this year's budget. However, we do have earmarked reserves that we could use if that came to it. So it's not as if it's impossible.
But the next grant, which is for 30,000, which is the whole of the earmarked reserves for the Holme Civic Hall for next year. So that's the problem.
Yeah, but full council could agree to via money from other elements of the budget, should it wish so to do. Can I just see if we got a seconder for Councillor Pogson's proposal, that effectively we agree in principle, but until it comes back with 3 quotes, then it will not be awarded.
He's either supporting or...
Councillor Brooke, are you supporting or are you making a comment?
No, I was just to rectify what I think has been missed here. One of the reasons why we brought it to full council is because it was out of this year's budget, and we wanted a thing in principle. But what we could do is in principle is say, in principle we agree to some terms, but they've got to meet requirements of getting quotes. So we can do that to speed the process up. Because I think what it is because it's this year's budget which was causing a bit of an issue in the meeting. So can I come up with a counter proposal that we agree in principle, but they've got to get the free quote and, you know, come back to us with that. But we just agree in principle that we put some money to one side, but don't give a set amount.
Can I just ask the RFO if that works in principle like that?
I don't think it does really, because we really, if we had an actual invoice with an actual amount, we could do that. We could defer the payment of that till next year, and it would still basically come out of this year's money. But if it's a kind of an undefined amount, it becomes harder. I don't think it's possible really.
Okay, right. We've got the proposer. Yeah, I can see most people still want to say things, but I want to move progress. I'll just hear from Chair of CASC, so Councillor Colling, and then we'll move to vote on Councillor Pogson.
If we don't spend it this financial year, it will presumably, and Rich will correct me if I'm wrong, go into reserves, unearmarked reserves. And then in next financial year, we could follow Councillor Pogson's suggestion and take it out of unearmarked reserves, and it will be the same pot of money.
Yeah, full council would have the power to move money if it so chose to do in order to support it. So I don't think it's the money doesn't disappear as such; it just disappears from being specifically allocated to the Civic Hall. And
our expenditure for the coming year is a wee bit higher, and our expenditure for this year is a wee bit lower.
Yeah. Okay, so we had Councillor Pogson's proposal, which is effectively that we agree in principle, but until details of 3 quotes come back to CASC to review, and then if necessary, if it's over the 5,000 threshold, bring back to full council for approval of a specific cost. So I had that seconded by Councillor Tom Dixon. So can we take all those in favour of that proposal, please? Okay, so we've got Councillor Dixon, Councillor Hogley, Councillor Dalton, Councillor Brooke, Councillor Colling, Councillor Davies, Councillor Pogson, Councillor Blacker, Councillor Tom Dixon, Councillor Firth, Councillor Hall, Councillor East, Councillor Gould, Councillor Lockley, Councillor Sweeney. I think that was all the ones I could see for. Anyone against that proposal, please? No. Okay. Right, I'll assume others are abstentions, but we had a majority carrying it anyway. Okay, thank you for that. So moving on to the next item, which is again a grant payment towards Holmefirth Civic Hall Community Trust. And as it says in the agenda, this money is to make up for a shortfall in the funds available for the refurbishment of the toilets and provision of an office space. £30,000 was transferred in 2020 for this purpose. It wasn't during this financial year, it was the previous financial year. And there's now a shortfall in funds available, having arisen from the delays associated with COVID and subsequent restrictions. And I think the reality of the sort of estimates of how much the work was going to cost, and then contractors coming back. And I've been part of the tender review team, if you like. I've been the representative from the parish council who's then interviewed contractors who've come to pitch for the work effectively. I think there were four 4 tender applications, and 2 were then shortlisted, and 1 has been selected from that. And I can confirm that the cost of the works is in excess of what was previously anticipated. So if granted, the payment would come from earmarked reserves in next year's budget, and we'd earmarked £30,000 towards the Civic Hall, and it would be the entire amount of reserves earmarked for the hall. But as we've just discussed, should full council wish to via money from other elements of the cask budget or elsewhere, then those options are of course available. So do we have any questions or comments? Councillor Dalton.
Thank you, Chair. Maybe you could put a little bit more flesh on the bones of the numbers that you've just run through, and what stage we're actually at here. I'm not aware whether work has started on the refurbishment, or whether we're at a position where the trust is looking to place that contract, and that contract is for a value higher than that anticipated. But obviously, there's £30,000 been put on the slate for the contract thus far, and what this item is asking us to do is, in essence, double that to £60,000. So could you maybe just clarify what the costs on that project are that are spent to date, presumably on professional fees and the like, unless the job's already started? And maybe you could look at advise the council what the successful tenderer has actually quoted to do the works for.
Well, my role on the tender process is to make sure it's been done fully. I'm not cited necessarily on all the detail of that, because the community trust are the ones who are managing and running that refurbishment work. All I can say is that the 2 tenderers, the 4 tenderers, I know they all had slightly different prices, but I understand they were above what they were originally anticipating they would be. And the 2 tenders that were shortlisted were the lower cost tenders, and they undertook a full sort of discussion and questions on the work involved. And I think the reality is that some elements of the work are more complicated than originally realised. So things like concrete has to be pumped over the top of the building because of access concerns with the how you can get a truck in there, and just the scale of works needed. But those are questions really that, I mean, to give you the overview of, I've just dug out the specification and the schedule of works. It's the work involved is proposed refurbishment of the toilets, provision of a new wheelchair accessible toilet and office reception, a new storage area and fire escape within the present external well at the rear of the Civic Hall. That is the summary of the works involved, and the detail of working up exactly what is required is done by the Holme Civic Hall Community Trust, not by the Parish Council. Right, Councillor Brooke, please.
Yeah, on this, I think that when they came to the council, they explained quite well. They've met our criteria, what we're asking, Councillor's daughters asked them, but we've got to entrust that they know what they're doing. We've put a faith into a team, to run the Civic Hall on our behalf. We can't keep questioning everything they do. They've met the criteria of what they need to do. It's up to us to agree with them what, if they need this money or not to question what they're doing.
Okay. I'll drink. I can see your hand, Councillor Dalton, but I'm letting others speak first, please, because Councillor Blacker.
I'd just like to go back to what Councillor Parish said. I mean, this does seem a rather strange way of handling expenditure on assets which we actually own. When we had the sort of lengthy discussion on grants, I think there was one suggestion that those assets that we own should be put in a different category and should be handled differently. I think there is a better way of handling. I know it doesn't help us tonight, but there is a better way of handling this.
Okay, thank you. I think the reality is that the language of grants applies for. It'll be the same with when we've got Honley Library and the monetary support that we've said that we will give them. So I think there, but by all means, there may be opportunities for the clerk team to look at options for clarifying it going forwards. But I think I'd echo what Councillor Brooks' comments on the fact that the community trust are the body that we've that have been established to make the best success of the hall. Not for us to micromanage it, but I recognise it's a large sum of money. Councillor Colling?
I was just going to say, if we're going to manage it, then we need to employ somebody. I mean, the decision was made that we should give this responsibility and this work to a management committee of trustees, as we are going to do with Honley Library. And that means we don't, or our staff don't, spend time looking at competitive tenders for very complicated things and that sort of stuff. We would need probably another member of staff if we're going to start doing this ourselves for the Civic Hall and the library.
Okay, Councillor Greaves, I saw your hand.
Thank you. I think it is right that the parish council scrutinises all requests for funding. I find it peculiar to say not. The Civic Hall has got a lease on the property. They're looking to undertake the work. We need to be clear what the money's been spent on. And some of these amounts, they seem, I have to say, £10,000 for some fire safety doors seems a tremendous amount of money, unless it's linked to a lot of other work. So these are referrals from CASC. So my question here is why hasn't CASC put a comment through and a recommendation for the full council in terms of the investigations it's done in terms of these grant requests and what is asking full council to approve? It just feels like it's pinged them on. Has there been a discussion at CASC about the issues and the merits of these grant requests?
Councillor Colling, I'll let you reply to that, then I'll bring in Councillor
there's
Dixon,
been
Senior.
Detailed discussion at CASC, and there's been discussion at finance and management. And we're not yet at a stage of looking at competitive tenders for the fire doors, the bigger work. The fire doors, funnily enough, although they were going to be in the earlier financial year, came up later than the bigger work. The bigger work is still going on, and Councillor Hogley and Councillor Kath Bellamy are both involved with that as trustee. Well, Kath is a trustee and Rachel as a partner in this process. And I think to suggest that we are asking the council not to scrutinise expenditure is mischievous and not true. We are looking at it, but well, I've got nothing more to say.
Okay, Councillor Dixon, Senior.
I can't understand where Pat's coming from, suggesting we get another member of staff. We're going to employ more people than anybody else in Holme before we've done it, if we don't carry on at this night. I understood that there was work to be done on the toilets. We were putting in £30,000 towards it. It gives me the impression that because they've been under lockdown and not been operating, they haven't got sufficient money generated from their own sources, and they're now looking to do the work still. And it was obviously the right time to do the work during lockdown when the facility wasn't open. Where has the money gone that they were putting in? Because when we were putting in 30, they were obviously putting in the remainder. Has that gone on costs that they've lost? I don't know, because we can't be forever paying to it. I know the rates were set high 3 years ago in order to provide money for the Civic Hall when we took it over in the first place. We know we've got a lot of money to spend on it, but this is ridiculous, having to double up all the time, and every time they come with a handout saying, yes, there you are. Should the lease have been self-repairing, and then it wouldn't have been a problem on us?
I think just to point out that the business plan that Councillor Patrick, sorry, not Councillor Patrick, Judith Patrick, as chair of the Civic Hall Trust, has flagged up is part of, you know, we were part of putting together the business plan, and there was an expectation that we would contribute, but obviously the level to which we contribute would change over time. Right, Councillor Dalton, then Councillor Carey.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just to clarify, I wasn't questioning the process or who should do what. I was asking some pretty, I thought, straightforward questions. If we've got an item on our agenda that's asking us to approve, and you've come up with a number from somewhere and it's £30,000, and if that's a valid £30,000 for good reason, then that's fine. I asked some simple questions about costs to date. Now, it would be usual if somebody comes on a contract to the funder wanting more funds to complete a project, that they would come back and say, unfortunately, we've had these issues to deal with. This was the original plan, and these are the numbers. But however, we've had to spend X amount, and we've now got to spend X amount more. Please. So this £30,000 has come onto the agenda item from somewhere, presumably after a review. And I was just asking some straightforward questions, the answers to which would hopefully clarify where this £30,000 has come from. We've got an overseeing role here. The public are paying for this, and it's our responsibility to make sure that money is prudently and efficiently spent. So I just wanted to clarify. I was asking straightforward questions about numbers, not questioning who should be doing what. And we have a duty as councillors to know what these numbers are so that we can undertake our role as overseeing the public's expenditure.
Okay, I think it was Councillor Carey, then Councillor Colling.
Thank you, Chair. I think this does expose this much bigger problem about the nature of their management of the building. Normally, if you lease a building, you either lease it with or without repair and maintenance sort of provision within the lease. This actually is not, but this isn't repair and maintenance. This is actually complete refurbishment, and I think therefore probably should be tracked completely differently. In terms of the money, the report says that this is an additional 140,000, of which they're asking the parish council for 30. So I assume when it says additional 140, this is 140 on top of the schedule scheme. And it also says below that they've got 55,000 of that from the League of Friends, and they themselves are going to use their reserves to fill any shortfall, which means they're going to find 55, League of Friends find 55. And we're being asked for 30,000 of the budget of the balance. But these are extraordinarily large figures, and it's true that we haven't seen any detail. And what's concerning me more now, maybe I should have been more forthright in this in the past when I raised this is our building. These are things which we can commission them to do the work to get the quotes to manage the work, which is what they're doing. But I think ultimately we should be paying for this directly and paying those quotes. So we ask them to raise the quotes and we'll pay the bill. And it may be that it's even more than this, but it is £150,000 worth of work that they're proposing, because it's the 10,000 on the fire door as well, effectively. And it does seem odd that we haven't got, all we have is a briefing from Judith, who gives, you know, I'm sure Judith is doing her very best and getting the best quotes she can, because they don't want to use their reserves any more than they need to either. So it's not that I don't trust them. It's just I think the process is wrong. I just don't think we should be treating this as a grant. That's why I abstained on the previous one, because actually my view now is this shouldn't be a grant. It's our building. We should pay for it.
Okay, I suppose the issue is that there's grants coming from other sources, as you outlined, that contribute to the cost of it. So we're not being asked to pay for all of it. We're being asked to contribute to the wider cost. Okay, Councillor Colling and then Councillor Greaves.
I just wanted to answer Councillor Dalton's question about the 30,000. The sum of 30,000 is what we on cask and then finance and then full council agreed to take out of unallocated reserves and put into allocated reserves for the civic centre because we expected further expenditure. It was an amount we thought would be appropriate, which we did not know whether or not they would require it at the point at which we approved its shift from unallocated to allocated reserves. It was after that they came back asking for more money. So that's why it's 30,000. It was just us taking a lump out of unallocated reserves.
Okay, Councillor Greaves.
Thank you. Just to come back on a few points, I actually, when I said that I think it's appropriate for the parish council to scrutinise, that wasn't a mischievous comment about the role of cask. That was a response to Councillor Brooks' statement that it wasn't. It'd be helpful if, rather than try to put words into my mouth, people listen to what other speakers were saying. I'm confused in terms of, if there's so much money in reserves, why is the Civic Hall asking for grant funding for these fire doors? We own the building, but it's leased to them. They operate the building and they take the surplus from it. So what's supposedly the deal for the parish council in this arrangement, that the Civic Hall body takes all the profit and all the bills get sent to the council? Is that how? It just seems a peculiar set of affairs whereby when a committee sends a matter for consideration up to full council, run the Civic Hall, what's the purpose of the trustee board other than to take the profit from the rentals? It's all operated by staff. So if the Civic Hall Trust actually has a purpose, what is it?
Okay, thanks, Councillor Greaves. Councillor Pogson.
Yeah, to my understanding of, you know, when I think back, it was one of our first days ever joined the parish council, we took on the Holme Valley Civic Trust. That was just happening as I joined, but we set up as a trust because if we ran it, if it was just the parish council's building and the parish council ran it, we wouldn't be able to access as much funding from other areas, because we would be saying, well, you're a council, you raise a precept, you can pay for everything. And that would be Councillor Carey's thing. It's our building, we pay for everything, we run it. But setting it up as a trust, the feeling was that they could access funds from elsewhere, which they seem to have done for this project, and they will be able to run it themselves and run it on a volunteer basis. Why it's very difficult for a parish council to ask volunteers to do things for them when they say, well, you earn a precept, you know, you bill the members of the public a precept, and then you get volunteers to do all your work. You know, so I see the reasoning why it's held by a trust. Whether I agree with it or not, we're going back into the past. Where we are is where we are. A trust runs it, and there's advantages with that, and that's with the payment of the project and what have you. You know, I'm not seeing the quotes of where the money, you know, what we need to, you know, I'm quite supportive of them and I'm quite happy to support them, but you know, let me see the tenders, let me see what I'm paying for. Anyway, that's me. Okay, so does Councillor Brooke make a final comment, and then we need to look for a proposal as to how to move forward.
Yeah, I think I misunderstood what I said. I mean, what I said was, in the committee thing, we had a discussion, and they met all our requirements, what they needed to do to ask for a grant of money, and we we decided to put it towards the council because of the amount of money that was doing. We was recommending to the council that we accept this, but it's obviously not been put down in paper. This that it's just saying we want to approve a payment of 30 grand. That's what I meant. That is, they've done their job. They've come to us and said, "This is what done." They've done everything they needed to do. What we've asked them to do. We've come to the full council now to ask the question. You know, can we do this? And yes or no. I've not said that. You know, we leave it. It's we've looked at what they have done, and you know, we've fine-tuned comb and said, "This is we appreciate what you've done. We're happy with what you've done. We need to take it to the next stage." But as Councillor Greaves has pointed out, it doesn't really say that on the minutes. It just says that, and I think there's a big mistake here where councillors are not too sure what's going on, and I think people on cast don't understand what's going on, but people who are not on cast don't know what's going on, and I think there's a fundamental mistake here which needs to be addressed in future terms so that it doesn't cause a confusion, because we've had an half-an-hour meeting about something what's been discussed properly on the community assets.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Brooke. Right, Councillor Tom Dixon.
For the fire doors, when I saw it in a cask, I thought the 10,000 was for fire doors for the whole Civic Hall. So I made a mistake there, like with looking at the form. 10,000 does seem excessive for that. But the 30,000 going towards the other part of the project seems quite reasonable and within the amount of what the project would cost. The project for the phase one is very big, what they're planning on doing with the toilets and making new areas and things like that. So I think that would be within a reasonable amount of money to give them towards the project. But so I wouldn't have a problem with this 30,000. With the 10,000, I totally get it. It does seem excessive.
Okay, so
sorry,
you're putting together a proposal then?
Sorry, the other thing I was going to mention as well is that the parish council is allowed to have members on the trustee board and to be part of it. And like we've got Kath as being part of it, and I was hoping she might be able to answer some of the questions that have been raised. But previously we did have 2 councillors on there, so the burden just wouldn't be on Kath. So when we do have our next annual parish council meeting, when we decide people who go in different parts, maybe it should be worth it, other councillors maybe thinking about being part of the trustee as well, or joining the trustee as a member, because I think Kath would appreciate the support in this, and I think we need somebody else on there to help us with these questions we have.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Dixon. I'll just bring Liz in, please. Can we unmute Liz? Can you unmute yourself?
Right, to go back to the fire doors, I'd just like to say they're very big doors, and I guess they have to be made to measure. They're not just ordinary doors. They're like the external doors downstairs, but they're at the back of the hall. So I don't think it's at all unusual that it might be 10,000. So that's my first point. My second point is I always thought that I was the only one who didn't understand our relationship with the Civic Hall, but it appears I'm not the only one. But I'll go back to January last year. I had a conversation with Judith Patrick, and she said that they wouldn't be looking for any money from the parish council because the money needed to keep the hall going was in the hundreds of thousands. And that's why it was set up as a trust, so that they could find money elsewhere that we don't have. And I think it's right that they apply for grants, because we've got to look at what they need from us against everything else that we're asked for. Because, you know, we don't, it is our building, but we haven't said we will pay for everything for that building. So it seems perfectly right to me that they make a grant application. I do think now, looking back, there's a bit too little information about the quotations. And then another point is that you can have as many people as you like on the trustees, but they're not allowed to talk in meetings. They have to express an interest. So actually that information never comes to CASC, which seems to me a basic problem. That's all I've got to say.
Okay, right, thank you. Right, we're going to, I think Councillor Tom Dixon had what sounded like a proposal, which is that we support the £30,000 grant as a contribution towards the wider cost of the project. Just before we look for a seconder on that, Councillor Greaves and then Councillor Dalton, and then we need to move to a vote, please.
Okay, so I just want to be clear on this. Are we saying that the only councillors who have actively any knowledge about what this money is going to be spent on have had no discussions and made no explanations at all to CASC, who have then taken the decision to refer it through to full council to endorse this expenditure itself, what this money is getting spent on?
Well, we certainly never hear from Councillor Bellamy in CAS, but I did think that because Councillor Hogley was part of this tendering exercise, we'd have a good overview of the amount of money that was needed and why we needed it extra, and that's where it's come from. So,
reading this grant application, this work that was originally budgeted for has hit a cost overrun of £140,000, of which they're looking for 40,000 to come from Parish Council, 55,000 from the Home Valley Memorial League of Friends. I'm not entirely sure why they're putting the money in, and the rest is going to come from the reserves. So I don't really see where this external grant leverage is coming from. A cost overrun of that magnitude is questionable. Some of the items of cost that have been identified are way beyond what would be normal. And then to hear that the only people who actually have any knowledge of what's going on aren't able to share that information with CASC, I think that's actually wrong anyway. But if they've not shared that information, who is making a decision here based upon what?
I think to clarify from the grant form, where it says additional support for phase 1 project, my understanding is that that's because they're asking for additional support from the parish council, but the cost of the works is was anticipated at around £140,000. But the fact remains that there's different funding bodies, and I know the community trust have lost all their income effectively from the last year, which I think has been noted by others, and therefore they have both a shortfall in terms of how much money they're able to contribute, but also the costs of the work have increased because the work has turned out to be more complicated than anticipated. And to clarify, the work hasn't started on site yet in terms of the refurbishment of the toilets and the storeroom, etc. Right, Councillor Dalton, final comment, and then we need to move to a vote, please.
Yeah, a couple of things. Obviously, the work hasn't started yet. Thanks for clarifying that. How we've already uncovered unforeseen circumstances at this stage is obviously not too clear. But with respect to the item on the agenda, we are being asked to, we're not being asked for a general extra 30 grand for the trust because of X, Y, Z. We're being asked to approve £30,000 additional for the refurbishment of toilets and provision of an office space. And the numbers that have been thrown around in the meeting, you know, the 30,000 was allocated last year, and we're already, without a screwdriver being put in a screw, we're being asked to increase that by £30,000 without having any numerical feedback to justify that. And to be quite frank, the numbers involved for refurbishment of the toilets and the provision of an office space are absolutely scandalous. I mean, we do not want to end up having the reputation of Penistone Town Council after their toilet debacle, because they became an absolute joke, the most expensive toilet in Britain.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dalton. What I would say is that the Community Trust have, from what I've seen, undertaken a full tender, contacted experienced contractors who can do the range of works required, and it's worth bearing in mind it is a listed building and you need to maintain access for the public during the works, so that they're all added things that would result in the costs being higher. Right, but I note what's said about the granularity of information that we've been given or not been given. Okay, we had a proposal from Councillor Tom Dixon, which was to go ahead with awarding of the grant of 30,000 towards the Community Trust as a contribution towards this refurbishment work. Do we have anyone who will second that, please? Councillor Carey, are you seconding it?
No, I want to propose an amendment to that.
Right, okay. Okay, we'll take the, well, can we just see if we got a seconder for Councillor Dixon's proposal first? We won't vote on it, but we need to establish it's got a seconder. So that's Councillor Trevor Bellamy. Thank you. Okay, now we've got a counter proposal with Councillor Carey.
Yeah, I proposed for both items. Well, maybe the first one was carried, so maybe the fire doors. I abstained. I think that one was carried anyway. I was going to amend, or that we basically ring fence 30,000, but we don't make a decision. So there's 30,000 that's potentially got their name on it, but we defer the item. I just think there's too much discontent in the room, really. So I think my guess is you may well lose the vote, but rather than lose the vote, I think my amendment would mean, you know, we are supportive of the group. We are keen to try and help them get over the line in terms of the work they want to do, but it's just we're lacking far too much information. So I'd defer the decision for this evening. That'd be my proposal.
Okay, which, I mean, I would say the monies are already earmarked in our approved budget for next year for potential drawdown from the by the community trust. So I think they're already sort of protected in that sense, that 30,000 doesn't then just go into general reserves because it's from next year's budget.
Just as a deferment rather than a...
Yeah, so it'll be a deferment of the decision until more detail is required. Okay, so Councillor Carey is asking for or made a counter proposal, which is for the deferment of the decision of awarding of those monies until more detail and breakdown of the cost increment over time has been provided. And I think Councillor Greaves, are you seconding that? Yep. Okay. So we take a vote then, unless anyone's got any other counter proposals. I can't see any. Okay, so we take a vote on the counter proposal first, which is that full council defers the decision on whether to award this grant pending more information on the breakdown of the costs involved and the explanations for the cost increment and how the monies to date given towards the project have been utilised. I've expanded that slightly to clarify it. Okay, which is seconded by Councillor Greaves. So all those in favour of that way forward, please. Okay, so we've got Councillor Blacker, Councillor Carey, Councillor Sheard, Councillor Gould, Councillor Hall, Councillor Lockley, Councillor Sweeney, Councillor Greaves, Councillor Dixon, Councillor Pogson, Councillor Davies, Councillor Colling, Councillor Trevor Bellamy, I think. I think it's carried, basically. I'll support that. Is anyone against that counter proposal? No. Okay, and given Councillor Tom Dixon voted in favour of that, I take that as a sort of withdrawal of the original vote. Okay, all right. Thank you very much for that. That was a good discussion and lots of food for thought, I think, in terms of how we better develop and understand our relationship with the community trust and build an effective feedback loop with them whilst still offering support in the way that we can. Okay, so thank you for that. Moving on to item 204, which is referral from Publications and Communications Committee. Deputy Clerk to report. So Rich.
Yeah. I'm just finding the paperwork. Yeah. So at the moment we've got a broadband package with PlusNet. It ran out in at the end of January, so we're paying the out of contract price basically, which is £23.50 a month. One of the problems we've had with it, or there's a few problems with it. One, if me and Liz are using the internet at the same time, it sometimes gets very slow. As you're also aware, if I try to upload videos to YouTube when I'm at work, it takes me about 7 hours to do, which is a bit ludicrous, really. We were also considering the possibility of, as was discussed before, being able to invite members of the public to access, you know, to attend meetings when we're in-person meetings. So we're looking to the possibility of sort of increasing our teleconferencing possibilities at the exhibition room in future. Now, with that in mind, we think it's likely that we'll need a better internet connection than we've got currently. So I had a hunt around to see what options were. Now, there aren't the only option in terms of a fibre connection to the Civic Hall is BT. But it seems to be a good service. At the moment, with PlusNet, we're getting about 18 to 20 megabits per second, and this current offer from BT is in the mid 70s up to 80. In terms of the guaranteed speeds, PlusNet only offer 2.5 megabits per second, and BT offer, I think, 41, I think it was. And so you're talking about 20 times as fast. In terms of the upload speeds, at the moment it's 1, which is why it's taking 7 hours to do a YouTube video. BT is offering 18, so it's 18 times as fast. So what would take 7 hours to do currently will take under half an hour. The price has gone up basically to £28 a month, so it's an extra £5 what we're paying currently, which strikes me as a fairly good deal. It kind of sets us up for the future. It doesn't need any extra cabling. It just fits into the cabling we've already got into the Civic Hall. And I think it's a sensible option in terms of safeguarding us for the future, really.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I propose that we approve that, please? Can someone second that? Councillor Brooke, thank you. All those in favour? Upgrading the broadband, sort of necessary evil for modern working. All right, thank you. That looks carried. Okay, so moving on to payment of insurance premiums. This is another slight curiosity of our relationship with the Holme Civic Hall Community Trust, but effectively, oh, sorry, that's the next item. That's 206. 205 is just the payment for the Parish Council's annual insurance premium, which is obviously based on the Register of Assets that we looked at before. So, if anyone's got any questions, can I suggest that we approve that, please? Can someone second that, please? Yeah, Councillor Bogson, thank you. All those in favour? Yep, thank you. Okay, item 206. This is about the insurance premium that Holmfirth Civic Hall Community Trust pay, or rather we pay and then they pay us back. That's a system we've had since the start. So,
can I just say why that is? It's
yep,
because,
by all means.
Because the lease says that we will pay it. That's why we pay it and they pay us back.
Super. Thank you for clarifying, Liz. Much appreciated. Okay, Councillor Bogson.
I remember when that was agreed, it was on the basis that it was our building and we wanted to be sure that insurance was paid. And if we just left it up to the leaseholder and they chose not to pay it and then it burnt down, we would be left in, you know, or something happened to it. So we wanted to, whilst we consider it to be something that they should pay, we have an interest to make sure that it is actually paid.
Okay, thank you for that. So can I suggest we approve that? Councillor Brooks seconding. All right, all those in favour, please. Thank you. Okay, so moving on to policy and other matters. The first one under item 207 is to approve the memorial benches policy. And this was considered by the Service Provision Committee back in January. So Councillor Pogson, as chair of the particular meeting where it was discussed, if you've got anything you wish to raise, you don't have to. But.
Yeah, we took on board some, it was put forward to the council previously. And at that time, there were a few points that was raised regarding how long your plaque would remain on it and how many plaques you would go on a bench. And there were a few things. So we looked at those and we had quite a detailed discussion about them and look at the various things there. And we believe that we have come up with something that was, well, we approved it at the Service Provision Committee meeting and it's been in the minutes. And that's where we are. So has anyone got any queries about it? Councillor Dalton.
Yeah.
Thank you. Just to say thank you, Michael. The new proposal appears to have taken on board the comments that were raised and the difficulties that were, or potential difficulties that were foreseen following our previous discussions. And I think this policy is a lot more appropriate. So well done on that.
Thank you, Councillor Dalton.
Okay, is that a seconding of? That sounds like a seconding of the proposal to approve it, which Councillor Pogson gave in a indirect fashion.
Yes.
Sorry, Councillor Dalton, are you wishing to clarify something?
Yeah, I'm happy to second that motion of Councillor Pogson.
Yeah. Okay. All right. All those in favour, please. Okay, the next item 208 is to approve the training policy, which was as considered by the staffing committee in February. So I'm trying to spot Councillor Trevor Bellamy as chair of staffing, if he wishes to comment on it at all before suggesting it for approval.
I would suggest it.
Yeah, far away, Trevor, we can hear you.
I would suggest approval on that one if we could, please. I think at the time we didn't see any significant problems arising.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm happy to second that. So all those in favour, please. Okay, I see a majority of hands. Thank you very much. So that's carried. And the next item 209 is to approve the meeting schedule for the next council year, which is from April 2021 to May 2022. So can I suggest we approve that, please? Does someone second that? Yeah, Councillor Tom Dixon, yeah, all those in favour? Okay, thank you very much. So moving on to the next item. All right, item 210. I mean, the agenda item explains where this comes from. This was to consider correspondence from the parish council and guidance on when it should be sent by the clerk or by councillors. And this arose from a course that Councillor Blacker attended, which indicated that any correspondence on behalf of the council should always come from the clerk. And we asked for further clarification on that. And as it says here, further advice was sought and the YLCA confirmed this position in light of freedom of information requirements and the need for formal responses. But it also recognised that it's not quite as clear cut as that, because councillors often wish to engage with people directly, and channeling all the correspondence of anything related to parish council through the clerk can be burdensome for the clerk team, and also prevent swift responses and communication with the public. So what's been put together here, and I don't think I need to read it out because you can all read it in the agenda item, is just some guidance to note, some suggested guidance to just remind people of being conscious of when they're presenting themselves as a councillor, and the fact that any formal communication is say letters, for example, from the council would always have to be done in conjunction with the clerk and through a delegation of responsibility in a meeting. So that's just a note, unless anyone's got any comments on it. Okay, thank you. So moving on to item 211. This is to note that 2 councillors have resigned for the council as of the 19th February 2021. Obviously, I mentioned those earlier this evening. Councillors Feeney and Barker have left us. So I'd like to just say, obviously they're not here to, because as soon as you resign, you disappear. But I think we should note their contribution to the council and thank them for being councillors for the duration of time that they were on the council. And just to note that there will be elections to fill those posts as councillors in the Upper Thong and Holmfirth Central wards, which will take place on the 6th of May 2021. And there's details there of nomination papers, so if anyone has local friends or colleagues in mind who they think might be interested in becoming parish councillors, then they could be directed towards the contacts in the agenda. And just a reminder as well, obviously the local council elections coming up, PERDA starts this Thursday, which will be 6 weeks before the May elections. So given we have 2 parish councillors being elected, we just need to note that therefore the parish council needs to be careful of any anything that could be deemed political messaging or communication of things under the banner of the parish council. So we just need to note that might affect what we're able to publicise until after the 6th of May. Okay, so moving on to item 2.12. This is just a note that we've had a freedom of information request that was made to the council on the 20th of January 2021, asking for information on all the awarded quarries and all associated papers regarding to those that were in the possession of the council up to 2009. There have been various clarifications with the person asking the questions, and the scanning of and redaction of documents, associated relevant documents, has now been completed. So the person will be sent the information later this week, and the costs for that will fall under the Freedom of Information budget line. Councillor Dalton?
Yeah, could I request that a copy of that response is sent to me, please?
Okay, the response or all the hundreds of pages of PDF that go with it?
Yeah, the complete response would be good, thank you.
Okay, sure we can arrange for that to Councillor Carey.
I'm waiting to be unmuted. Okay.
Yeah, you're on, Councillor Carey.
It's because we know the scale of this, because it basically came through the land charge. It's a phenomenal amount of paperwork and a lot of expense in photocopying. If that could be sent electronically to Councillor Dalton, I'd rather that was the case.
I'm happy to receive it electronically. Keep costs down, yes.
Yeah, well, it was scanned, so it would be in an electronic format that it would be able to be shared. Okay. So moving on to item 213, is to approve a request for a leave of absence of 6 months for Councillor Roberts. Now you've all received details that separately. I can see various hands have popped up. So Councillor Paul Dixon, and then Councillor Brooke, and then Councillor Dalton, please.
Councillor Roberts has been a good councillor on this council for a long time, and when we hear that she's out of hospital, could we please send a card, a get well card, plus some flowers from the council, just as a matter of token of good faith?
Okay, yeah, definitely. That's a very good idea. Councillor Dixon. Councillor Brooke, were you going to say the same? Yeah, okay. Councillor Dalton, were you going to say the same?
I'd like to propose this goes straight to a vote, and I'd support this motion.
Okay. So to approve the leave of absence, so we just need to all vote in favour of that. I don't think anyone's speaking against it. Okay, all those in favour? Okay, so it's formally noted. Okay, thank you very much. And obviously we'll pick up what Councillor Dixon was raised about sending some flowers and a card. And Councillor Dalton?
Yeah, just following that vote, thank you, Council, for voting that through. Councillor Roberts is my fellow ward councillor, and any matters relating to our ward, this is for Liz and Rich, which parishioners need assistance on, I'm here in Judith's stead and available to them.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that, Councillor Dalton. Okay, so moving on to the next item, which is just to note that the past chairman's dual for 2019-20 is being received, and at a cost of £183.17, and in your papers there's a picture of the dual. So that's just a note. Okay, so moving on to item 215. Right, this is a sort of planning for a planning scenario, effectively, to consider a potential postponement of the annual council meeting. Now, just to read out the advice, under current regulations, and these are sort of nationwide regulations that affect all parish councils, not us. Well, sorry, us as part of them, but we're not individually identified. Remote meetings are not due to be permitted after the 6th of May 2021, and representations are being made nationally to the government to amend this, and that's only by the National Association of Local Councils, and I've raised it with our local MP, who is writing to the minister responsible in the government to raise my concerns about it. It's proposed that if we are required to meet in person after the 6th of May, rather than being permitted to continue as we are tonight as a remote meeting, that we postpone the annual council meeting to the 12th of July so that it could be held in person, which would be after the projected release of COVID restrictions in terms of gatherings, which would hopefully allow us therefore to have the meeting in person, but in a safe environment. Now, this will only be implemented if the regulations have not been updated, and obviously we hope that they are updated so that we're able to meet remotely if required. And then the annual council meeting would carry on as it is currently scheduled, which is on the 10th of May. So it should be noted that the office holders will be appointed at the annual council meeting. So if the regulations get updated and we can continue to have remote meetings, the annual council meeting will happen on the 10th of May. It'll be done remotely, and that's when all the office holders will be appointed. And if we are forced to meet in person, so that it avoids concerns about us being able to meet and actually hold a meeting face to face in advance of all the restrictions being lifted, which is due to happen in June, it's proposed that we actually defer the annual council meeting to the 12th of July 2021. And if you recall, obviously last year we had to postpone the annual council meeting from May to September, so it's not unheard of to, particularly in these unusual circumstances, to consider that. Okay, I can see a thumb up from Councillor Brooke, but I think Councillor Dalton wishes to make a comment.
Yes, thank you, Chair. On the 10th of May, we'll be in a position where we will have 2 additional councillors elected by the electorate. Those councillors have formal paperwork to sign at that time before they can engage in council processes. I think it's not going to be. I don't think it's going to be fair on the 2 new councillors if those processes can't be undertaken, that they don't get a vote in the matters that are under discussion in the annual general meeting. So I think it would be prudent under the circumstances to look at the 12th of July date as a sensible date, which will allow the new councillors who are elected to have gone through the processes of receiving the documentation from the clerk, unless we can be assured that that can be done prior to the first meeting on the 10th of May.
My recollection is that the new councillors just have to sign the paperwork with the clerk, and then they come attend the meeting. So there's no need for them to sign the paperwork at the full council meeting. But I think Councillor Tom Dixon had his hand up. He may put greater clarity on that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. They could sign the paperwork before the meeting, just because it's not going to be an annual council meeting. it will still be like a normal council meeting like we're having tonight on that date. So if they're going to the office and meet with Rich beforehand, they could sign the paperwork. But at the moment, it's not looking likely that we'll be able to meet on the 6th in person. So I'd be happy for it to be deferred till the 12th.
I think the issue is if the regulations aren't extended, any remote meetings won't technically be legal, and therefore any decisions taken at them will not be implemented. You know, they'll not be legally held decisions, and therefore if we're forced to meet in person, we would be requiring all our councillors to attend in person on the 10th of May. And I'm not sure about other councillors, but I would say that given that is in advance of the majority of restrictions being lifted, or the final elements of restrictions being lifted, I would question whether that would be a fair meeting for everyone to be able to feel safe to attend. Councillor Carey.
Yeah, I just wonder whether it's worth it. What's the issue of actually just cancelling that meeting altogether and making the decision now to have the annual meeting in July and not have a May meeting? Will that disrupt our work too much? I mean, I know it will disrupt it, but it seems we're in a difficult position, and you're trying to second guess something that might happen. Is a cleaner way just to say we won't meet until July. But then I don't know, I'm assuming the rules also apply to all the formal committees that will also be required to meet in person.
They would do, and I think, yeah,
we've got a bigger issue if there's hesitancy within the room about meeting before step 4 effectively, then this isn't really just the annual council meeting, that this issue applies to all of those committees.
Although that said, what I just you're right, Councillor Carey, but that said, the committees involve fewer people, and therefore it's easier to hold said meetings spread out, as indeed we did back in March when we had the sort of emergency meeting at the start of the pandemic. And as a committee, the committees are up to 13 people, not up to 23, and having a socially distant spread out through the large hall full council meeting is a slightly more challenging exercise. Right, Councillor Dalton?
Yeah, I just see that many procedural problems with having a meeting on the 10th of May, 4 days after an election. I mean, for instance, how can the clerk comply with the standing orders of the council to summons councillors to a meeting when at the time when she has to have them summoned to the meeting, she doesn't know the names of 2 of the councillors, which we know we will know the names of the day after. It just seems that this is procedurally unfair on 2 new councillors who basically would have to wait a whole year to be able to involve themselves in the selection of committees and the likes. I think Councillor Carey's suggestion, just to put it to the 20th or whoever's suggestion it was, it might have been mine, to the 12th of July is just a sensible way of avoiding all these potential procedural pitfalls and what can be perceived as an unfairness towards 2 new councillors, whoever they may be.
I think I'll bring Councillor Pogson in a moment. I just say the papers for our meetings do go on the website. So anyone who thought who was a candidate who wished to review the paperwork prior to finding out if they'd won a seat would have the opportunity to review those if they so wished. But Councillor Pogson?
Yeah, I mean, regarding the election side of things, that happens every 4 years. We have an election on the first Thursday in May, and a full council meeting very shortly afterwards, and that's what happens in district councils, and that's what happens in Parliament. You know, if you're putting yourself forward, you're elected, you start the job. That's the name of the game. So I don't think that side of things would sway my decision one way or the other. I think we're just looking at whether we during the COVID and the regulations and trying to second guess the regulations, and in such a sense as that I'll say it now, I'm okay with the proposal.
Okay, Councillor Paul Dixon and then Councillor Davies.
Don't see a problem with the 10th of May. I think whoever is elected on the 6th, their name, telephone number, connection can be given to the clerk or the deputy clerk, and provision for them, the newly elected members, to rendezvous and sign the necessary paperwork should take place. And I think that if Liz and Richard could organise contact with the said people, they can then be put on and allowed to be members of committees for the full year. And that is no different. What happens now, what happened before was you went to the meeting and signed in before you became an official councillor. And if in this instance, because we've got this event which we didn't expect, Richard and Liz can contact whoever is successful, and let's have them on, and let's get things happening on the 10th if possible, so that we aren't lagging behind for the rest of the year.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Paul Dixon. Councillor Davies, did you say
Yeah,
something on that?
basically just a second Councillor Pogson's proposal, which I think is in line with exactly what Councillor Dixon just said. So certainly like to second that and put it to the vote.
Okay, so are we, I assume from that we are agreeing to the potential postponement, therefore, of the meeting if required by the regulations not changing to allow remote meetings to carry on. Am I right, Councillor Pogson?
Councillor Dixon's waving his hand.
Yeah, I just want to clarify Councillor Pogson's proposal, then I'll come to you, Councillor Dixon, before we take a vote.
Councillor Pogson.
Councillor Pogson.
Sorry, where am I? Yeah. Proposal that we carry on. It's the. I propose the proposals in front of us. What's in the agenda? Yeah, yeah.
Right. Which is seconded by Councillor Davies, but Councillor Paul Dixon, final comment before we have a vote.
Just the one point that I'd like to ask Liz and Richard if they're prepared to do what I asked and make it in their way to get the people to sign the paperwork before the 10th.
Yeah, that's not a problem. That's not a problem. I mean, they can come into the Civic Hall and we can do it at a distance.
Okay. Right, can we move to vote then? We've got a proposal from Councillor Pogson, seconded by Councillor Davies. All those in favour, please. Okay, that's definitely a majority. Okay, thank you. Anyone against? Councillor Lockley? Okay, any abstentions? No. Oh, an abstention from Councillor Dalton. Okay, thank you very much for that. So moving on to the next item. Item 216, which is to consider an offer of voluntary help for the clerk. It's outlined in the agenda, but effectively it's a member of the public who was thinking about standing for election and then they've changed their mind, but they've offered to do some voluntary work and they would be potentially helping sort through old files and arrange shredding, for example. Obviously that would all be done under the supervision and approval of the Parish Council clerk, so under Liz's supervision, and any information they saw would not be anything above and beyond what members of the public could see, so it wouldn't involve any confidential staff records or that sort of thing. Okay, Councillor Brooke.
Yeah, I'm happy with this, but the only thing I'm worried about, they've got to realise that they're going to be holding some privileged information. I know it's, like organising minutes and all that for the signatures and stuff like that. The person who ever does this has got to understand this is privileged information, and they've got to keep it to themselves to said meetings happen. They can't, they've got to sort of sign some agreement that they can't leak information out at all, because otherwise we could come a bit unstuck.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Brooke. Councillor Tom Dixon.
Yeah, I think we'd have to be careful about this, because I don't think they might not know what they're shredding, and they might shred something by mistake that they shouldn't do, and then we could be in a whole mountain of trouble. It might be something that Liz and Rich would know that don't shred, but they don't know that, and I don't think it'd be right to have somebody coming in and doing that.
I think to clarify, they wouldn't be just sort of told there's a filing cabinet, go and shred it well. It would be a case of being given specific tasks to do, which may include then taking agreed information and putting it through a shredder, which can be a very time-consuming process. But I'll ask Liz to come back in a minute. But Councillor Carey.
Thanks, Chair. I just wonder actually if we've got a volunteer policy and where we stand on things like expenses and supervision. I mean, normally a policy would include all the concerns that have been expressed about confidentiality and appropriate behaviour and, you know, acting in line. So I guess there's more to having a volunteer than just somebody popping into the office, isn't there? You know, there's responsibilities go two-way, and I'm sure a lot of parishes up and down the country use volunteers in all sorts of different ways. So there must be procedures or protocols that we could adopt. But I mean, I think if somebody's willing to do it and willing to do it for free, to give back to the community, that's a great offer, and we should embrace it. And we just need to do it properly. That's all I'd say. So I'm just checking where we are on protocols, really.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Carey. Councillor Lockley.
Yeah, I was just going to ask who is the person's name. I'm sorry if I missed it.
Oh, hang on. I think it's Valerie Rendell. She's somebody that came to Councillor Bellamy to consider standing for election, and then when I sent her all the paperwork, she said she didn't want to do that, but she'd be quite like to come and help out. So, I mean, I haven't even spoken to her. I just wanted to have permission before I went any further. So I'm not even sure she'll want to do the things I've got in mind. So it's just whether in principle you think it's a going concern.
Okay, I'll bring Councillor Brooke back in, and then Councillor Trevor Bellamy.
Yeah, we've had this situation before when Sally Barber brought her sons, and I think she brought somebody else in to do things in the past. And with, you know, there was an understanding of what we said. You know, they've got to understand what the parish council do and don't leak information. We was quite happy for that to happen. So it's only the same situation, but obviously with a different person.
Okay, right. Thanks, Councillor Trevor Bellamy, please.
Yes, thank you. The idea of a person, whether it be a councillor or otherwise, offering the voluntary service, if you like, for perhaps a half day a week or whatever. We spoke about that a few weeks ago at one of the staffing meetings. I brought it up because of comments from our staff, i.e. the clerk and deputy clerk, that things would work better for them if there was some form of assistance to help them with perhaps with the mundane stuff, if you like. And we did discuss it. This was prior to this lady's offer. That's got to be said. You know, we were talking just in general, but I don't know this lady at all. I've just spoke to her over the phone. But if that's a genuine offer and she sort of joins our clerk and see what is demanded of her, I will be supportive of it. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Blacker, please. And then Councillor Dalton.
I think I'd feel distinctly uncomfortable about somebody coming in with as a volunteer if we haven't discussed this in principle, volunteering in principle. As Councillor Carey said, it's normal to have a whole set of policies around volunteering. I mean, it may be a good idea, but I don't think we should respond positively to an offer until we've actually made a decision in principle about whether it's acceptable or we wish to have volunteers.
Okay, could I just ask, before I bring in Councillor Dalton, can I just ask if Councillor Sweeney's got any comments on that? Because I know he's been working on the workloads for our clerk and deputy clerk, and if he's got any comments about assistance in that way.
The issues of confidentiality are valid ones. So I think, but that's, I think, a general principle that we need to maintain, and that pertains to the comments just made about a general principle about volunteering. To my mind, that we should take use of anything of this type where we have an eager and concerned citizen prepared to help out with what essentially are minutiae tasks, which would otherwise encumber the clerks in their activities. So I'd be supportive of this.
Okay. Councillor Dalton's just disappeared. Did you have a comment, Councillor Dalton, you wanted to raise?
Yeah, just the item on the agenda is talking about about helping to sort through old files and arranging shredding. Would it be possible to highlight to the councillors who haven't got experience in archive destruction processes what the protocol that the clerk has, which guides her in matters of archive destruction?
Well, we've got we have a policy on management of information, and there's certain time scales for different information. I mean, I wouldn't let that person choose it, because even 2 years in, I hate having to go through stuff and throw it away because I'm terrified of making mistakes. I wouldn't ask someone to actually make that decision. It was just, for instance, we need to go through.
Is there a copy of that policy on the website?
Yeah.
Yes.
What I was thinking was, for instance, we have to collect all the minutes and get them signed from the year and put them forward for having them bound. So that anyone can take copies off the website, make sure draft is deleted and they're full minutes, and takes them round to all the councillors who are chairman. I mean, that's just one task that could take hours, and anyone could do it. Just an example.
Okay, so I think we had a I know Councillor Trevor Bellamy was supportive of the principle of utilising this volunteer proposal, but we could caveat that with subject to review of or provision of an appropriate policy, which we could seek guidance from YLCA if they had such a thing, or NALC on the use of volunteers, so that the confidentiality issues are addressed, because that feels like a sensible way forward. Councillor Carey, final comment?
Yeah, as somebody who used to run Kirklees Volunteer Bureau and got extensive experience in this, I've just looked on the internet. There's loads of parish council volunteer policies out there. They vary massively, and we haven't got, so we can get support from the bodies which we're part of via the parish. We can also get support from third sector leaders, but I think it's just, for me, it's just a matter of agreeing a basic protocol, and I'll be happy to work with the clerks or somebody else in drafting that or finding one that's suitable. But I do think you should have that in place before they start. That's what I would say. Whether that needs to go to a formal staffing committee or whether it's something can be done internally. But you know, I just think you better to, you don't get the offer and then create the job. You create the structure and then you recruit to that. Basically, I think we're just fortunate we've got somebody who's stepped up already, but I'm happy to help with that.
Okay, so it sounds like we've got a proposal to develop a suitable volunteer policy, which should be developed with Councillor Carey working with the clerk, to then be brought back to a future staffing committee to allow us in principle to bring in voluntary help. Seems to be where we've got to. Obviously conscious that this person may, even if it's several months hence before they get approached again to see if they wish to still offer their services, will be in a position to formally know what's involved and to advise them of what's involved. So can I propose that we go with that course of action? So Councillor Brooks seconding that. All those in favour, please. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Okay, right, on to the final item, report from the chairman. Right, well, I mean, there isn't a whole lot in terms of reporting on obviously events or things going on because we've all been stuck at home. But there is a fairly major thing which is going to affect us all, which is very regrettably our clerk, Liz, has advised that she's going to be handing in her resignation as clerk, which I'm sure you will all join me in saying that's, we're very saddened to hear that. Respect her decisions for, respect her reasons for making the decision, and I'd like to offer my thanks to her for all her hard work in the time that she's been our parish council clerk. And that's good, thank you. Then just in terms of obviously recruiting a successor, Liz has kindly said that she's willing to ideally hand over to a new incumbent of the role, and mindful that whilst the notice period is only a month, actually it may take a bit longer than that to actually find a replacement. And ideally, if Liz is able to hand over to her successor rather than have to engage the services of a locum clerk as we have in the past, it would be, I think, preferable. And Liz has kindly indicated that, well, subject to not taking forever, clearly, that she's happy to facilitate that in terms of working for a little bit longer to allow us to do that effective handover. So I'd like to say thank you to Liz for making that offer. Now, in terms of moving forward to recruit a successor, I'm keen to get the process underway as soon as possible, really, both for the benefit of Liz, who's obviously worked very hard for us up to date, and I don't want to keep her in role longer than we need to, and in terms of just getting someone up to speed, obviously then to work with Rich going forward. So in order to get the process underway, I'm suggesting that we call an extraordinary staffing meeting next Monday, which would be clerked by Rich, who's kindly said that he's happy to do that, so that we can then take forward the next steps of recruiting a successor as clerk. So just to make sure everyone's sort of on the same page as to what the staffing committee's terms of reference are, they were actually updated back on the 9th of November 2020, just to clarify the whole issue of appointments. And the update that was made at that time was that the staffing committee will be responsible for all matters relating to the advertising, interviewing, selection and appointment of a member of staff where such post has been approved by full council. Obviously, the role of clerk is a critical role of full council, which currently stands as a role as clerk. So it's not that we're proposing any new role; it is the role of clerk. So with that in mind, I'm just letting the council know that I'm intending to call an extraordinary staffing meeting next Monday, so that we can then start looking at the practicalities of recruiting or starting to recruit a new clerk. So does anyone want to make any comments on this, other than to obviously say thank you to Liz, which has been expressed? Okay, Councillor Paul Dixon.
Thank you, Liz, for what you've done in the past. My wonder is that for continuity, whether it may be well in the best interest, I don't know whether he would want to do it or not, but to offer the position of clerk to Richard and to apply for a deputy clerk. And then we have somebody in charge who knows what we're doing. If that isn't his wish, that's fine by me.
I've already had that asked that question of Rich. I don't know, Rich, if you want to comment on that.
My personal feeling is that I'm not experienced enough really to be the clerk. I think I'd be better set if I was still doing the role I'm doing and learning from that and learning from an experienced clerk personally.
Okay. All right. Does anyone else have any comments or queries? Councillor Dalton, then Councillor Carey.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, I think it'd be unfair on Rich for two reasons. One, I think we've already agreed at previous council meetings that the role, after advice, external advice, that the roles of the RFO and the clerk should be held by different persons. So I wouldn't wish to put Rich under those pressures, even. But I acknowledge Councillor Dixon's support for our RFO in Rich.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dalton. Right, Councillor Carey and then Councillor Pogson.
Just to echo everybody else said, and it's really sorry to lose Liz, and I wish you all the best in whatever she goes on to next. As for Rich's comment, I mean, one, I don't think we should really have the conversation here. It's not fair to put Rich on the spot. But also, the truth is, Rich, there may well be, we may well not recruit an experienced clerk. I think it's going to be very difficult to recruit an experienced clerk. So, you know, I wouldn't rule yourself out through lack of experience, because we may find ourselves that we can't get a fully certified clerk anyway. Everybody's got transferable skills, and I'd encourage anybody to apply for the post.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Carey. Councillor Pogson.
Pass on my thanks to Liz. I think she's done a fantastic job. I've been very impressed with her at the time of the parish council. Been very, very helpful. I think it's very, it makes it very awkward, doesn't it? We're having a conversation about Richard when Richard's in the room and what have you. And also from an employing point of view, I don't think it's particularly. I don't know about legality of it, but I don't think it's the done thing. I think, you know, the job will be advertised by the staffing committee, and whoever wants to apply for it can apply for it. If Richard's one of those people, Richard's one of those people, but we would employ the best person there. So I think we can leave it at that without having a bit of a backroom discussion about whether we should give the job to Richard or not, because I think it's a bit unfair on us, on Richard and everybody else concerned. But I think they're both great.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Bobson. Yeah, that's right. Continue the discussion specifically about Rich's suitability for the role. Right, Councillor Brooke, then Councillor Hall, please.
Yeah, I was saying, sorry to got you going, Liz. You've worked hard, and I mean, the last 12 months it's been an impossible job, and you've proved yourself well. And it's shame you want to leave, and we're going to be losing another good person. But as my councillor Boxer just said, then Richard's a good person as well. So, you know, we've got a good team there, and it's a shame that we're going to be losing the team.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Brooke. Councillor Hall.
Yeah, I'm like everyone else. I'm sorry to see Liz go. We've worked together, and I found her very willing and able. And I like to say, like everyone else, that she's taken on a job and had to have the most difficult time to have tried to fit in with everything, what the virus and everything else. So many thanks, Liz, for all you've done, and all the best. Thank you.
Thanks, Di.
Okay, yeah, Councillor Davies and then Councillor Bellamy.
Yeah, again, Liz, we've already sort of had this brief discussion, but you know, much thanks. The way you've handled yourself, the professional manner, the huge commitment you've made to the parish has been exemplary. It's been fantastic. You've had to deal with a whole range of issues, you know, through everything from, you know, obviously from COVID to us, obviously, you know, driving forward with more and more sort of related community activities, you know, stretching the council further, conduct issues, a whole range of things, and you've always done that with good humour, and be hugely supportive. And I know with Rich, you've worked together, both of you, extremely well, and that's also been fantastic. So I know there'll be another opportunity to thank you, but certainly thanks for myself for all the fantastic work you've done.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Trevor Bellamy.
Yes, thank you. With regard to proposed meeting for Monday, obviously we spoke about it earlier, very supportive of that. We can set the basic ground rules out and take it from there in all respects. I can see the idea of it being moved forward as quickly as we can has been a focus for us, without any shadow of a doubt. And looking at the options that are available to us, we can think of various options now, but leave it one Monday. We'll set out our demands and our requirements, and we'll take it from there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so we will draw that discussion to a close, and that brings the meeting to a close. So thank you very much all for your attendance, and I would say enjoy the rest of the evening, but it's pretty much bedtime. But anyway, thanks a lot, and speak to you all soon. Right, bye-bye.
Bye.